All right, welcome back to another Bebo Knows podcast. This is Brian Bullock, and I have one of the CCH boys, Colin, on. And
Yo.
I also have a special guest on the pod today, Alan Boston. How you doing tonight, Alan?
Somewhere in the middle. How are you guys?
I can't complain. I'm living. I'm breathing.
I just
had Texas Southern cover for me, so I'm happy about that.
So Alan, I know a lot of people know who you are, but one of the things I like to do with new podcast guests is have them give a little bit of their background, their gambling roots, favorite sports to bet, any personal favorite sports betting moment that you might have. So however you care to introduce yourself in terms of a sports bettor, feel free to take it away.
All right. Do you mind if I get a little long-winded?
We encourage that.
Well, you encourage that. Good. So full time. All right. So I'm good at being long-winded, so we're going to work out really well here.
So we usually do it with alcohol, but we'll take a pass.
I'm on this juice fast. Wow, it's really weird. But anyway, so my name's Alan. Nicknamed Boston Dvorkas. Been in Las Vegas as a resident for the last 26 years, earning a living betting on college sports. Recently, I went only to college basketball since I had a lot more success with that, and I enjoyed that a lot more. My roots or my influences, I went to University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Their home court's the Palestra. Back in those days, all the Big Five games were played there, every single one of them. There was no home games in the Big Five. They were all played at the Palestra on a neutral court, and it was neutral. Half the tickets for one side, half the tickets for the other. It was an amazing event, each and every one of them. I went to the ones that Penn played in, and I went to the ones that Penn did not play in. I found every excuse to get to the Palestra. A great venue, and if anyone's ever had a chance to go there, it really, really is a must-take. Let me turn this fucking thing down. The computer's talking to me with halftime stats and shit. So back then, there was a guy in the New York Daily News named Jim McCarthy. He wrote a column called The Latest Line. It was this little box, actually, that I think was only in the New York Daily News. I couldn't find it in any other newspaper. And he wrote these, like, alliterative blurbs where he made these picks. Now, we're talking late 70s. We're not talking days of the Internet. We're talking where you couldn't get scores on games, where I had to listen to WINS in New York from Boston to get scores. WINS, now time for WINS Sports. Quarter after the hour, now time for WINS Sports. And every half hour on the 15-minute mark, I'd be listening in to get the updates. And you always rooted if, it was the bottom of the fifth, you always rooted for it to still be bottom of the fifth because now you know your team is still hitting and probably scoring some runs. But so the world was a lot wider. It was very difficult to get information. So this guy was making picks from New York on Creighton and Southwest Missouri State or, William and Mary, Virginia Tech. And, I always wondered, how the hell does this guy know who's going to win these games? I mean, how do you follow all this stuff? Because there's no way to read about it. There's no Internet.
Right.
Out-of-town newspapers were difficult to get. So I was intrigued. And then I heard about these people called wise guys. And back then, the wise guy moves were very strong. People who bet college basketball who were good. The lines were insanely bad back then, and it was a picnic. But, when their hot side is Virginia Tech +2 against Louisville, I'll never forget that night. Take 2 with Virginia Tech. I said, what? Louisville was Denny Crum, top 10 team every year. The Duncan guys there, I forget what they were called, but it's not Phi Slamma Jamma. That was Houston, but this is similar, nonsense that they have run away with nowadays, where everything's labeled and everything is. Anyway, that's for another day. Well, how the hell can they bet against Louisville? And they happen to lose that, but it intrigued me. I got out of college and I read a book called The Handicapper by Robert Kalich, a great read. And page 1 of The Handicapper is this guy taking this manic influx of phone calls and he's getting information from all over the country about basketball teams, and he's taking that information, and I'll get a little modern here, and he's putting it into his internal database, and he's figuring out who's going to win.
Okay.
And I said, you know what, I want to be that guy one day. And in some ways, I did. So, good for me. Not good for me lately, but good for me for 20-something years anyway. So I am known for my college basketball expertise or lack thereof lately, and but I can't complain.
Okay.
My yearbook quote was from the show called Maverick with James Garner from the late 50s, early 60s. Work is a good way to while away the time, but a bad way to make a living. And how prescient that was.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So we'll get into a little bit about how college hoops has started for you so far. But one of the things that you mentioned when you first emailed me was how you're basically using your brain and 3-ring binders versus and you're basically facing computer programs basically. And one of the things I wanted to ask is, in your time as a sports bettor, what do you think has gotten better, and maybe what do you think has gotten worse about the sports betting landscape, maybe such as social media or whatever you might want to throw out there?
Well, the lines got a lot better, that's for sure. The people who bet got a lot smarter. So those aren't good things, but those are sad realities. It's still very beatable, but it's just a lot tougher, and it's maybe way too much work. For instance, Mr. Walters did not bet college basketball last year, nor do I believe he's betting it this year. So, if he don't think it's worth the battle, then perhaps he's pretty smart. Perhaps he's right, and it's just a waste of time. But I don't know what else I'm going to do with my life, so I'm going to gut it out for a little while longer.
I guess I can throw this in, Alan. One convenience, I guess, is that you can now bet online at a multiple number of books, including one absolute wager, instead of running up and down the strip or going downtown and parking in the valley.
Yeah, we just.
Book, so.
I don't handle any of the betting, but when we first started, so yeah, to back to the 3-ring binder thing. But I guess you don't want to get to there yet. I mean, I've gotten better at it too. Don't get me wrong. They've gotten better. I've gotten better too. So, at least I thought I did. That's about it. I don't know. It's just a different world. Everything that's changed as a result of it being a different world. When I first started, my nights were spent at the Stardust. Every single night, I went and watched that ticker for hours. On Saturday, I got there bright and early, made my bets, had breakfast, and watched the ticker the entire day. And if I want to bet, cashed it in and probably rebet it. I was on a shoestring. But that's what I did. That's how I learned. That's why pace of, the flow of the game is so important in what I do. That's how I learned how to do it, by getting scores every 5 minutes on the ticker for each game and, somehow tracking it that way. You figure out how to do it if you do it enough. It's like riding a bike. You train yourself to watch a ticket, and you remember each score. I could tell you each score of every game, every update, and it wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah, and I noted.
But had I been born in 1990, there's no doubt that would not be my way of doing it, because I don't even know if sports tickers even run in casinos anymore. I guess they do. Yes, the Red Rock's got one. So, but I don't really notice them. I don't think it runs at Bellagio all the time. And anyway, but that was the only way to get scores. There was no other way to do it. There was no computer to check. The first time I used a computer was 1992 or 93. I subscribed to Computer Sports World. I had a friend encourage me to try a computer. So I went and bought a computer, subscribed to Computer Sports World, and they had game stories on there. It was like $10 a month. I think I gave them $500 and signed up for 15 months. A lifetime service, which worked out pretty good, because it was about that time with the internet. It was about 5 years later when the internet really started taking hold, and you could do a lot more things with the internet.
Sure.
But at the time, I'd go to Computer Sports World, and they would number it'd be like SJ16, and I'd write down SJ16, and then I'd get out of there and type in SJ16 in a box, and the story would come up. So I had to go get the number of the story and then type it in a separate area. I guess it was in a folder or something, and you had to pull it up. But that's the way it worked back then. So it was much longer to read, and it was just an AP write-up. There were no newspapers available. They weren't on the net yet, and so that I think I was actually one of the first to start using those to my advantage. I always had all the injuries that no one else had, which turns out not to be worth the fuck anymore. But back then, I think it was a little more relevant. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Were you getting those injury and practice reports, like getting newspapers from all across the country, like cleaning them up for?
No, in the AP write-ups, they would mention if someone got knocked out of the game that mattered, and so this was college football, not college basketball. I did it with college basketball too, but it was just too hard. There were just too many games, so I just kind of relied on watching the ticker. I fool around going to the basketball write-ups, but I know how the game got played out because I watched the ticker. So no, it was just if it was mentioned in the report that there was an injury, I knew about it. But believe me, back then, no one had a single injury. So if a quarterback for Colorado State got knocked out, I knew it, and most others did not. They weren't on TV. They weren't. ESPN didn't have a ticker running underneath telling you what was going on nonstop. There was none of that available. I dug and found it, and
yeah, there's something I read.
It doesn't really mean much, but it's just. I'm just trying to describe the evolvement of a old school sports bettor. So I use the internet now to read game stories. That's what I do. I go to every newspaper and read every game story. I used to read all the previews, but they book so many fucking games now. It's just I'd have to be up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I don't have it in me anymore. I'm 56, and feel like I've lost a step a little bit. So,
do you think you have with your approach? Do you think that you have advantages over the new age bettor in some aspects?
Yeah, I think understanding how the game plays out is very important. If a team wins by 6, but they're ahead, 25 the whole game, that matters, as opposed to a game being, playing between 6 and 3 the other side the whole way. I think how a game plays out is more indicative of how good a team is than the final score. Obviously that's obvious. It's just having a little more information, but I'm not sure if programmers use that. I wouldn't know. They may. I may just be talking out of my asshole here and may be bragging, be sounding like a braggart over nothing. But like I said, that's a figment of my how I learned. I knew no other way to get scores than to sit in front of a ticker all night, so that's what I did. Look at that, Temple's in the lead. I'm actually winning a game. I don't mean to brag, but I'm ahead in the game. I pitched a shutout yesterday. So anyway, I still use 3-ring binders, and I still use my brain. I don't use any programmers. I don't crunch numbers. I understand that when I make a game, let's say 12 on a neutral, that it plays to a higher number. I'd love to talk to a programmer and figure out how to, build up some database, I guess it would be, and log all those 12-point neutral favorites to see what it actually means. I think it means about 14.5, but I don't know for sure. So, that's one thing I am wrong about, but I am aware of it.
Okay. Have you incorporated any new school techniques into your own betting that's maybe helped your betting?
None.
Okay.
I do it exactly the way I did it 30 years ago.
Okay.
26 years ago. That's for sure I did it, yeah.
Okay.
I do it exactly the same way. I have a schedule that I hand write, or actually have Costco print out the format of it, and I just write it all in because I had someone copy and paste it for me, but we had a little fight, so he didn't do it this year. So I hand wrote all my schedules. It's crazy.
But Alan, you shop. You definitely shop for lines, right? I mean, how many? I usually use 3 different books for football. Do you use a number of different books?
I don't do any of the betting. I don't do any of the betting. My partner does all the betting.
Okay.
So, but we're definitely trying to get the best price, right? I mean, that's like
Absolutely.
maybe rule number one. I'm not very good at it. I jumped the gun too much. For instance, I laid 5 on Arkansas State today when the game was going straight down because I just couldn't believe that it could go any lower, but it went lower. You know, I don't know what they're thinking. I know they've been betting these teams that have 5 starters back and betting against teams with 0 starters back. They seem to be a lot of money for those type teams. But I mean, these 2 teams played last year, and the line was 16.5. So how the fuck is it below 5? I mean, really, that's a huge overreaction, I think. Given that they both have the same coaches, and given that Brady's been there for years now, he's a good recruiter, and I don't think Arkansas State's going to drop off that much, but we'll see.
Okay, and we could segue into the next thing I wanted to bring up is college hoops, and wanted to see how you're doing so far. Based on how you're sounding, it sounds like it's a rough start to the year so far. I had a good opening night, and all of a sudden I have Ooey Pooey plus 11, which is my biggest bet of the night. It was my biggest bet of the night by a lot. I made the game 3. And, they lose by 13 in overtime, and there it is. It's like deja vu. This can't happen again. Last year, I charted the first 100 end games that could have gone either way, and I lost 76 of them. Jesus.
And I'm not exaggerating. And I try to be fair when I do this because I don't want to delude myself into thinking I'm running bad and piss away more money. You got to be objective about this at all times, and you got to be almost mean to yourself sometimes. Like, just what are you doing? And question everything nonstop. And maybe I might do that too much, but you really got to be honest, or else you're just going to delude yourself into thinking that you're just running bad when in fact you're playing bad. Which poker players steaming often do that. So. Yeah, it was like 24 and 76, and I stopped. It was just nauseating. I lost 18 straight games with the underdog in overtime. That I didn't lose 18. There were 18 in a row with the underdog before I won one with the favorite. It was so weird. And now the first night out of the box, the game I bet for the absolute most by at least 20% more than anything else. It was a complete lock that lost, and I don't know if subconsciously that affected the work the next 2 days, but Saturday was a small loser, and yesterday was a shutout. I lost every bet I made, and the sides weren't that good. I mean, I jumped the gun too quick with BU against Northeastern and took 6, and the game fell 6, and it closed 7, and it was a good bet. The game was a war. BU led most of the way, and Northeastern got the lead with about 3 minutes to go, and, it was just a random end game. They hit 10 out of 10 foul shots, I think, Northeastern. So it was a good bet, and I tied it, but I could have won it had I been a little more patient. It's just hard to know how far they go, and you don't want to miss out on a good bet. So it's, that's the tricky part. That's something I'm not very good at. And the guy moving the money always wants to ask because I'm the one doing the work,
Sure.
When should we jump in? When should we jump in? And I actually wish he would just do it because I'm not very good at it. In fact, you know what? I'm going to tell him, you just make the decisions, and whatever it is fine. That's a good idea. Anyway, we're going to go with that.
All right. Good. Yeah, let's go with that. So when you
So it's been shaky, and of course I lost last year. It's the first year I've lost. I won 25 straight years, and last year was the first year I lost. And like I said, I'm human. I do it with my brain, not with a computer, so I can't blame it on some glitch in the program or, So I'm starting to question myself. I am 56 now. I haven't been going to the gym lately. I'm not as healthy as I once was. And it's just, that is a bad beat. I mean, you can't, there's no question about that. You're taking 11 with a game. The game's a war, and it falls 13 in overtime. You just chalk it up as a bad loss. But the next couple of days, the work wasn't that good. And big deal. It's 2 days in a long season. There's a million games every day. I've been stuck as late as February. The biggest year I had, we were stuck in February. And we ended up killing it. I won every game after that. But it's a different atmosphere, without BW in the market manipulating games so he creates good bets for people. That's what's so beautiful about him. You have this Raz crew that plays in the morning, and I've been trying to encourage him, slow down, man. No one else is betting. You can manipulate markets and get good prices on everything. wait till there's room to bet. But they start betting like 6:30 Pacific time, and there's no market, and they bet and it affects the line, and there's no stopping it because everyone knows what I don't know if everyone knows what they're doing, but they're respected, and it's hard to manipulate it back. I'm not betting that high where I can afford to piss away that much money, so I just gotta skip it.
Yeah, I know Colin.
Yeah, they like to move totals by 10 points. It's pretty crazy.
They're fucking idiots. They really are. They're complete fucking idiots. They have no idea. The guy bets a lot of sides I like, so I'm not saying they don't know what they're doing. But as far as moving money, they have no clue what they're doing. Yeah, they manipulate lines, but they don't let it sit. They manipulate it and then just bet the other way. They have some off screens and they bet the screen one way, but they're immediately betting the other side. Like they're not even giving it a chance to settle or even run a little bit.
Are they really?
This is the same crew. This is the same crew that does college football for the first 6 weeks or so, and then they let off and they focus in on college basketball because there's a lot of the same stuff happens with college football the first few weeks. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know much about them. I do know what they bet.
I could tell you that week 2 or 3 of college football, I was having a shit fit over them because they moved the Duke Kansas line from 20 down to 11. I said, this is bullshit.
Yeah, 20 down to 11. They lost.
Yeah, Colin, you've had that happen to you quite a bit with their bets.
And the thing is they've been wrong. I'm sorry, I'll segue 2 seconds into college football. They were wrong every time they did it because Duke opened up 21 against Kansas, and then Roz came out and hit Kansas, moved the line all the way down to 11. That's a lot of points in college football, and Duke ended up winning that game. How the fuck can a game move that much in college football? Because they released it along with Phil Steele on ESPN. So I'm sitting around with like a $300 ticket in my hand on Duke, and now I've got a bad line. I could have gotten 10 points better, and then Duke ended up winning by 40 points. So they moved the line 10 points, and then they missed it by 40. So, and then they did the same thing with Missouri and Toledo. They moved that line 6 points, and they whiffed on that one too. So
my partner does college football. He had a huge bet on Missouri that game. He could not believe what was going on there.
Yeah, that line.
I remember that game. I don't do football anymore, but I follow my partner. He's very good, and he had a huge play on Missouri -3.
Yeah, we had the -6, and it moved all the way down. We thought, well, what the hell are we doing wrong? And then we found out Roz moved the line. We think Roz moved the line. We know they released it. So I kind of missed it.
Yeah, when they release it, it moves, but their handicapper bets a lot of other games besides the one they release, and they just do it too loudly. It's their choice.
Well, there's a lot of touts.
Free country, but when I was betting sky high in basketball, I wouldn't move the line. I'd bet the wrong way, and then when the market got bigger, I'd bet the right way, and no one knew it was me, or no one cared it was me. Who the fuck am I? I'm nobody, and the line would be the same as when it started, and I think that's what's fair to other handicappers. Give them a chance to bet it in case they hadn't bet it yet. That's just what I think. But I'm old school. I'm really. I think it's I always think loyalty is important, and even if I don't know anyone, I want to be fair to them. And I know that's kind of like horseshit, but that's absolutely the truth. We never moved the market ever, and we were betting sky high at one time. I mean, so. Anyway.
Yeah, but those touts have so many. They have thousands or hundreds or thousands of followers, and they release a play that they might not even have money on themselves. They just do it to get the line that they actually want. So
you're fading.
That don't bet. All right.
So Alan, when it comes to the beginning of the college basketball season, do you bet any more or less per game at this time of year, or do you feel like there's any more exposure to lines at this time of the year, or would you say it's about same relative throughout the year?
I like to think I have a bigger edge at the start because I like to think I have a better handle on how to interpret the first couple games than they do. So I think the beginning is kind of a guessing game. And then a little after the beginning, I think is probably the best time to bet when they played a couple games when I think I might know a team is good and they might not. And now you're just going to win. You're just going to win, right? I mean, I forget. Just for an example, there was off the top of my head, I remember this one instance. It was Texas A&M in Houston, and this one Texas A&M wasn't that good. And Houston was a good program. This was a long time ago, but I'll never forget this. And Texas A&M had played like Mississippi Valley State, and the first score was like 32-2. I'm like, whoa, where'd this come from? This is when they had no, this was UTEP. I'm sorry, UTEP in Houston. This is UTEP. Yeah, it was right after Haskins retired. No, Texas A&M. I'm wrong. Texas A&M in Houston. Anyway, let's go with that. That's what it was. So Texas A&M is playing Mississippi Valley. The first score was 32-2. They end up winning by like 45. The next game they're playing like Tech, and they're ahead like 28-4. I'm like, what's going on here? And this is a team I did not have rated very high. But I found that they're blowing these teams out and just shutting them down completely to be very relevant. And I upgraded this team quite a bit before they got on and played a board game. This is before they even booked these extra games. This is before extra games. And they were playing Houston one day, and I had the game like 9, and the game opened like 3. And obviously I made a big bet on it. And Mr. Walters came on the same side later on, so I felt very comfortable about it. And they won easy. It was a complete lock. But I interpreted that even though they were playing these really bad teams, that this was something that wasn't typical for a Texas A&M team at the time to be this good defensively and to get that far ahead. So I upgraded them quite a bit. And, that's just kind of a quick example of how I might notice something that the line maker wouldn't. Nowadays, they'll probably catch that. But there's little things in the flow of the game, teams making a run when you think they've had enough, and now, the team's a real hard-trying team that if they get in the right situation, they'll be worth a bet. There's just all these memories that you create by really following it, which I'm not doing a very good job of tonight, but I'll just read about it instead. So yeah, I think 2 and 3 games in are the best time to bet this. And then again, when conference starts, there's things to look for. I think that can be beneficial. And then again, when conference tournament week it's a whole different approach. And then the NCAA tournament, those other tournaments, again, a whole different approach. So it's like when there's a new season. There's a pre-conference season, there's the conference, there's the conference tournaments, and then there's the real deal tournaments. Okay. And they're all new situations. And every time you have a new situation, you have a new approach. The old power ratings are a little stale. So I think at the beginnings of those new seasons are the best times to bet. So all 4 of those new beginnings.
Okay. And when these new seasons begin, do you adjust? Have you found a way to adjust your power rankings accordingly, or is it kind of a work in progress?
It's just I wing it. It's okay. I don't know if you saw Boyhood. That's a movie that everyone has to see. I tweeted about that nonstop because it was just the most incredible experience I'd ever been to at a movie theater. I don't think. I'm sorry?
I went and saw it on your recommendation. Alan. It was really good.
And? Yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it?
Amazing. I can't believe it.
Ethan Hawke is like so amazing, and that kid, Ellen Coltrane, his name was like Tom Coltrane.
Yeah.
It just resonated.
His name was Nate. I was shocked. The movie was amazing.
So anyway, and the winging it line, like I don't. It hit me because the kid asked Ethan Hawke, so what's it all about? What's the point of all this? And he said, none of us know. We're just winging it. And so that's why that's how Boyhood came into my brain when I said winging it, because that's one of the lines in the movie. Anyway, I just wing it. It's all feel. It's not all feel. I mean, I'm sure I have math in my work. I mean, at least a fellow handicapper told me you use a lot of math, you just don't know it.
Sure.
Instinctively I probably understand math without knowing that I'm even using math. Like I understand there's ranges that these teams play between, and that if a team beats another team by 50, it doesn't mean anything. It just means they beat them by 50 that game. The way I like to explain power rankings to people is, a lot of people play golf, so you get this golf handicap. So you're a scratch golfer and you go out and shoot 82. Not a good score for you. you're still a scratch golfer. You just shot 82 that day. So if a team wins by 50 or loses by 50, they just had a bad day, that's all. It doesn't mean they're that bad a team. It doesn't mean the other team's 50 points better than them. You know, that game, under those circumstances, they were 50 better. But in other words, don't overreact to one score. Understand a team's strength. How good are they? What do they usually play to? And that's what they'll play to. And that's beginning, middle, and end. So Alan, tonight, just an example, just while it's on my head here. So South Alabama's playing Southern Miss tonight, and they opened this game 13, and it got bet down to like 10.5 before I had a chance at it. And I still had that game a lot lower, and my thinking was Southern Miss, yes, they've been a good program for many years now, but that was under Larry Eustace and Donnie Tyndall, both amazing coaches. Now they got the guy from Doc Sadler, the guy from UTEP in Nebraska. He's good, but he's not those guys, and they lost all their starters. So Southern Miss typically, when James Green was there and the coaches following him, they played to my power ranking of right around 75. So now that Eustace's gone and Tyndall's gone, I think this team's going to go right back to where they were. They recruit a certain type athlete, and they just got hit with these two fantastic coaches who make mountains out of molehills. And, I dropped their rating substantially more than I've ever dropped any team while I'm doing this. But that was the reason why. Because I know the Southern Miss program recruits a certain level player, and that's it. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get worse. So I ended up taking 10.5 with South Alabama. Of course, the game went to 11 after, but, so be it. Anyway, that was my thinking, that I went back like 6 years to try to remember what Southern Miss's ranking was then, because that's what I felt they would go to, given that they had no starters coming back and they had a new coach coming in. And you can even go that far to figure out how good is this team. And I hope that made some sense.
No, yeah.
It's looking good it's looking good right now. They're up 20-18.
Yeah,
all right. That's good.
So are there any particular teams or conferences that are catching your eye this year, as from a handicapper's point of view? Maybe ones that maybe you think you'll have an advantage on over the books?
I always think I'm going to do well in the Missouri Valley because it's so well covered in the newspapers. It's more as how well covered is the team, so how much can I read about them? How good are the articles that are written about the games? That's what helps me the most, because that's what feeds my internal database. That's what gives me the most information about how a game played out, what the coach thought about how they played. Was there an injury that mattered? Did a team get hot from three-point land? Did they have this block charge that hurt them, like in the Drexel, Colorado game? The guy tweeted about this charge that they blocked. They changed to a charge when it was on 8 late in the game, and it gave Drexel's player his fourth foul, like mid-second half, and from there Colorado got away from him. But the game was actually a really close game that, if they don't reverse this call, who knows? Now the game's not 17, the game's probably like 4 or 5. So little things like that affect what I do, and the more I can read about something like that, where there might have been some big call in the game that the team just fell apart after the call, you can almost throw out what they did after that, And also, did they end in a 10-0 run or 12-0 run, or all that stuff I just throw in there, and hopefully something hits me when I'm thinking about the game itself. When I'm really good, it just hits me. When I'm really bad, I'm searching, and right now it feels like I'm searching. So that's I have no conference in particular, but Missouri Valley is the one I think I would do well with, and I really do kind of dig in with the Ivies for obvious reasons. So I always think I'm going to do well with Ivy League basketball, and I think I'm always going to do well with Missouri Valley basketball. And only because, number one, I care most about the Ivies, and number two, I read most about the Missouri Valley. Every single one of those teams has massive amounts of stuff written about them, and it makes it really easy to get a feel for how good the team actually is.
Yeah,
there you go. That's good.
Yeah, maybe one of those conferences that you get, you could read up a lot about, and maybe it's not necessarily bet as much, where maybe you get weaker lines, perhaps.
Nah, they do a good job with everything. I mean, they put up these extra games that they never even book, and they made every game about what I made it. I mean, it was incredible. And now Eastern Michigan's ahead 6. That's great.
So are you?
So I'm by 10.
Are you watching a bunch of TVs? Do you have a bunch of TVs in your?
I don't watch any games.
Oh, okay.
I just watch the ticker. So I have my sports options on. Yes, I do use sports options, not Don Best, and I watch the scores come in. Last year, I was running so bad I couldn't even bear to watch a score because I knew it would just be bad for me. This year, I know how important that is for me, and I'm sitting here watching it, even though it might be wrenching. But the scores have turned for the better here. 25-15 Arkansas State. I actually would have liked to have said that. I forgot to tweet that game. Actually, fuck. I wanted to tweet that game so bad. It was like one of the best bets of the year. We didn't bet it as we did. All the money was against me, and you know, I was like 0-7 yesterday, and the money was against me like on every game. So I really was very, very careful tonight. I liked a bunch of games quite a bit, and I'm proud of myself actually with how careful I was tonight.
Yeah, that's something that people. Yeah, that's definitely one of the falls of a lot of us amateur bettors is lack of discipline. Yeah,
I don't have it. That's why I was proud of it. I'm not disciplined at all. I'm a degenerate at heart. I'm really a guy who just fell in love with the game, who came out here and winged it. I mean, that's why the winging line just resonates so much, like everything else in that movie did too. But I came out here because I had nothing else to do, and a friend had said, well, I didn't know if he was a friend or not. It was someone I met during a poker tournament. He said, come on out, we'll make some money. And I ran into some problems up in the Boston area and was told that maybe it's better off if I left. So I did. Since it was the local police that told me that, I listened. And I said, okay, I'm coming out. And I didn't know what he meant by we'll make money. I had no idea what he meant. So I went to the Hyatt Regency in Cambridge, where I got drunk every night, and didn't get drunk. I went there and nursed a beer and figured out my own college football power rankings. And I did it by taking final scores from the year before, which is really, you know, I had no idea what I was doing. This was a complete guess.
Just winging
I have a good mind. I mean, obviously I went to Penn. I'm not stupid. But I'm completely guessing. I'm taking final scores, nothing else, and creating power rankings from those final scores. You talk about a way to do it that really probably wasn't a good idea, but that's how I started. And then I bought a Sporting News college football preview, and I read about all the teams, and I adjusted the rankings that I created from the year before. And voila. I told them the starters opened at 6 o'clock on Sunday night. There were 8 games on the board the first week. And I remember Washington State, Illinois was at Washington State. I made the game pick. And he bet Washington State plus 6. He bet 800. That's what he bet. He was rather careful. And the game closed pick. Like, wow, look at me. In fact, there were 3 games that week that were way off what I made them, and they all moved my way. And they all won. And that happened the entire season. I won virtually every game that year. And, you know, obviously I started buying newspapers and reading what I could and trying to find out-of-town newspapers rather unsuccessfully. But there was stuff written in the Review Journal that if you read it, you can learn a few things. And I just killed it. I killed it by winging. I was winging it, completely winging it, believe me. But I killed it. Wow, this is pretty cool. Let me try this in basketball. And I actually bought a book that had power rankings in it. I don't remember whose it was. And again, I bought a preview, and I adjusted all the rankings. And eventually I did it with non-board teams. And then Scotty Shetler, who ran the Stardust, started booking those extra games. He was the first to do that way, way, way back in the day. In fact, he put out his own schedule. Arnie Lang wrote for him. He's a local, long-time sports announcer out here, or sports host, actually. And he had his own schedule with these extra games in it that I killed. But I was like the one guy doing the work on them. No one else was doing work on them. And that's how it began, and that's how it evolved. And, and eventually I got a call one day from Billy Walters, and He said, can we meet at the country club? I said, well, I'm not a country club type guy. And I said, let's meet at Ellis Island, which at the time didn't have a casino. It was just this divey bar that I knew he would not stomach. And he said, yes. I said, okay, this guy's all right then. And he went there and he told me, why I should work with him and this, that, and the other. And I had no idea how he knew that I was any good at college football. I have no idea. In fact, I'm going to have to ask him one of these days. How the fuck did you know it was me? I was working with some other crew that was giving me like a little bit on each game, but I was broke. I didn't care. I was just a kid, and I made a deal with him and worked for many, many years with him. My buddy told me to ask for $20,000 a game. I said, "Are you crazy?" The deal eventually was I got $12,000 cash to live on, and I got to bet up to $12,000 a game. Now, with a guy who has $100 in his pocket, making a deal like that's pretty fucking crazy, right?
Yeah.
I'm just a kid. I don't have a pot to piss in. And I remember the day up in Maine. I went to Maine every summer, and my mother was visiting me up in Maine, and I had to borrow $20 for someone to eat with. I hadn't been back in Vegas yet to pick up the money from Mr. Walters. And there were 3 games going on TV that I had on. I did watch the games back then. And I had $12,000 in these 3 games that were going simultaneously. And I'm thinking, I got $20 in my pocket, I got $12,000 in these 3 fucking games. What a world this is, How lucky am I? Like, really, I really got lucky. And I did well with Mr. Walters, and I won every year and got paid every year. And eventually, that was enough for me to go in with some friends, and we did the basketball together. And we killed that. Like, killed it. Year after year after year. And the first year we won $100,000 each. And that was like amazing. Like, you go from being broke to winning $100,000. I broke even with Mr. Walters' first year, so all the profits were college basketball that year. And from there it got better. And then I built this nice house and lived the life of Riley, and then started not doing as good, and I'm living over my head, and no one ever pays for anything when they go out with me, and
yeah, I read about that.
Here I am, a little bit older, and my house is worthless, and thank you very much, government. But that's for another day. I'll get into my libertarian talk.
Yeah, I voted libertarian in the 2012 election, so that was actually a degenerate bet that I made. I bet that Gary Johnson would get 1% of the vote, and he got 0.99. So
he didn't get 1% of the vote.
Well, technically,
he should get 100% of the vote. I mean, how sad is that? That guy didn't get 1% of the vote. That's sad, man. That guy was maybe that was probably their best candidate since Harry Brown. Like, Gary Johnson's fantastic. His policies were spot on. His speaking was delicious. He was really, really good candidate, very strong candidate, and he couldn't get 1% of the vote. That's disgusting.
And sadly, yeah, he's probably and that's like the highest I think that libertarian candidates even gotten. So
yeah, I think they actually did. They had their strongest year ever this year too. In the last election. So, I mean, they should get 100% of the vote. Like, how does Ron Paul not get every vote? Anyone heard him talk? It just, he's the nuts. 34-17 Ark State, by the way.
Nice.
For all those Tennessee Martin bettors. Why didn't I go fucking bonkers on that? And why? Because I said I was going to be very careful today. That's why. But that was a better bet than the other ones. That really was. It was 8-5, and then it's 4.5. Should have just pressed it.
So do you find any value? Do you find any value in like the in like any of the prime time games, or do you think those get bet too much?
I don't think. So here's the deal. People talk about the public. The public has no influence on any line. Maybe the first round, maybe the NCAA tournament where everyone and his mother wants to bet it, and then you get people with big money, getting involved and maybe influencing the market for half a point here and there. Maybe a little more out in Vegas where everyone in the world is out here betting, and oftentimes these favorites go crazy, especially in the late games out here. But other than that, the public doesn't matter. In the 1980s, the public mattered when everyone had money and the public had money. But now the public bets $50 a game. The wise guys bet the real money, or the handicappers, the guy who do it for a living. They bet a lot more than $50 a game because they have to. You can't earn a living betting $50 a game. So I don't think there's any value in anything. It's all quite the same. The line maker knows what he's doing. The people who are betting know what they're doing. Like I said, until the NCAA tournament comes, I don't think the public has much to do to change anything. So everything's kind of the same. There's no real value in anything. There's value in what you are most comfortable with. That's so it's more you than them, I think.
Okay.
Just, as long as you're not a computer programmer, then it's 100% all the same. You feed the computer, it spits out a number. Whatever the number is gospel. And you may have a guy doing injuries to adjust it if you think injuries matter, which I'm not so sure they do. And then you just bet. It's all etched in stone. It's like a blackjack card counter. There's something you're supposed to do, and you just do it. So the computer says 7, the game's 3.5. That's worth, a 5-unit bet or a 4-unit bet. The computer says 7, the line's 5.5. That's worth a half a unit. Whatever it is, it is.
Sure.
But Mr. Old School here. So whatever you're most comfortable with would be with either A, the public, or B, someone who still does it with his mind and not a computer.
Okay. So
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think so. Colin, did you have anything else before we get? Did you have any questions for me before we got into futures talk?
Nah, I'm ready for Alan to talk about my 40-1 Gonzaga.
Okay, yeah. Why don't you mention some of your futures to Alan and see what he thinks?
Okay.
So earlier this year, I was at the LVH putting in for the Super Contest and noticed Gonzaga was 40-1. And I know
how are you doing in that, by the way?
We are 32-22, so we're tied for 100th out of 1,400.
Is that in the money?
Guys tonight? God, we're 2 wins away from the money. So and we got the Titans going right now. So we're 2 wins, 2 fucking points away from the money. So we're
all right. Go Titans.
Yeah, go Titans.
I ran out about 7 with the Titans at the stations last night, and it was 7 flat tonight. So
yeah,
I don't really follow it, but how the fuck are they? How the fuck is the Steelers 7 on the road? They were just a home dog to like 3 different teams. Like, they're not that good. They had a couple of good games, right?
Yeah, we're in the running. We're close. We're really close. We're just outside the money, so we're excited.
Well, good luck. All right, so here's the deal with futures. It's very rare that you find some great future bet. Even when I had Wichita State 2 years ago at 350-1, it turned out to not be any big deal. Because had I parlayed the money lines, I would have done better. I would have done better than 350-1, which seems almost impossible. There's only 64 teams, right? So it should be 63-1, but that's not the way it worked out. Wichita State was a dog in every game, and had I just taken $1 and parlayed it on the money line each game, I would have got better than 350-1.
Which is what I did with Florida Gulf Coast a couple of years ago. You just keep rolling that money line money over and over and over, and
you just have the heart. You have to have the heart to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And when I got to Louisville, I don't know if I would have the heart to keep doing it. Although they obviously should have beaten Louisville. The referees just took care of that. They made some calls that were just unbelievable in that game, and no one's ever going to say anything, and no one's ever going to investigate because there's so much fucking money involved that you're not allowed to say anything. The call they made in that Duke SMU game years ago, Duke Baylor game, I mean, with Scott Drew. I mean, I don't know, Scott Drew didn't answer the charge they called, the block they called. It was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. It was the worst call ever in a game. The guy was standing there and got plowed into, and they called a block, but it was Duke. And had they not made that call, Duke was going out, and that's one of the ESPN boys. You got to have them in.
Was that
at the time? Baylor wasn't one of the big boys. So back to the Gonzaga at 40-1. I think Gonzaga has their best team ever this year, and the good news with that is I think it's the best team ever in the right way, and by that I mean Gonzaga back in the Dan Fitzgerald days, which is before anyone knew about him. He's the one that started the whole Gonzaga, who used to run all this beautiful offense and defend somewhat intelligently. With Monson and then on to Few, they ran this beautiful stuff, and they occasionally pulled the upset in the NCAA tournament. and they were this great Cinderella story. Then they started recruiting these high-level players, and then they crossed the line. They weren't Cinderella anymore. They were one of the good old boys. But by doing that, they got away from what made Gonzaga good, and that's running offense, being unselfish, and taking good shots, treasuring every possession. And I think this team is more like those teams, except more talented. So I think that you have a very good ticket. But when is that Eastern Michigan by 8? God damn it! Game unwinds. I never win. It's so fucking weird. If I'm not 100 ahead, I ain't gonna win. I got Hofstra plus 13. They're down 14 with a minute to go. I guarantee I lose. You're supposed to be like probably a small favorite to win from here, even though you're down 14. Because the other team's got the scrubs in, and you're still trying to score. You backdoor this, but I won't. Even though I got the Raz boys on my side, but they took 14 because they bet early. Anyway, I think, unless Gonzaga gets a 1 seed, that 40-1 is probably going to be okay. That's probably a good one.
Yeah,
because they have a very high rating, and they're on a lot of highly rated teams this year, so they're going to be favored in probably about every game. They're going to get screwed by the committee because they always get screwed by the committee. They get screwed. Pittsburgh gets screwed, and every mid-major that enters the tournament gets screwed. So that's a given. They're going to get a bad draw. They're going to get a tough draw. Even the year they were the 1 seed, right? They had the easy game, the first game, because you have to make a 16 seed real. But then the second round was Pitt, Wichita State, which was the most ridiculous 8-9 game ever by my ratings, right? I mean, and it turned out to be right that, but the committee knew that. They knew Wichita State was the real deal. I mean, you had to see their games during the year. They were playing to this incredibly high level. And Pitt's always a tough tournament team. They play the right way, and he recruits good players, not great players, but he gets really good players to play really smart. So who the fuck wants to play them in the second round? I mean, it was just ridiculous. And, of course, they got taken out, which is what they wanted. The committee succeeded in that regard. And that's the battle you're going to have is they're going to get the worst draw no matter what. But I think 40-1 is enough to overcome that because this team is really, really good. Witness that first game with they beat a team that's not that horrible. They were up 100 right off the bat, bang.
So I mean, just to loop in what we were talking about earlier, my other future was a 500-1 that I bought out at LVH on Colorado State, and I did that mostly because of East Stacey, the talent they have, and the fact that I think that he can win the Mountain West. And if he wins the Mountain West, then he's got a chance to win a tournament. 500-1 is great value. It was a 300-1.
If they win the Mountain West, they'll get a good seed, right? And then it's worth it. But other than that, I don't think it'll be worth it. I think probably the money line will probably be close to about. I don't have Colorado State rated that high, so. But they played a great first game, and the article in the Fort Collins paper read incredibly well for them.
Right.
Like this was a they beat a good team, and they killed them. It was over immediately. Montana's a very good program. Granted the coach left, and they lost a lot of talent, but that's been a high-level Big Sky team for 20 years. Not an easy team to roll, which they did. They killed them. So in that regard, you have hope, but I don't know if they can win the Mountain West. I mean, the Mountain West is brutal.
And at 500-1, I thought it'll be something to laugh at and something to have fun with. My last future was where I graduated from. I was a freshman at Arkansas when we won the national championship. So
what'd you get with them?
100-1.
How much?
100-1. 100-1. Yeah.
Yeah, that depends on. Relax, Bella. That's my great name. I have Arkansas rated very high. A little disappointed they tied at the half with Alabama State the first game. But that Alabama State good player hit like 5 threes in a row to keep them in it. But that was a little disappointing. I'll be curious to see how they do in the next couple of games. I think he has the real deal team this year.
They got Delaware State on Friday night. I'm going to go to that. But
all right, it fell 12.
Yeah.
Fell 12. Nice to have luck boxes on your side.
Yep.
There you go.
Bad bet that won. See, there you go. There's an example of a bad bet that won. I took 13. The game was never in the game, and it fell 12. So chalk that up to
so
one on the plus side of the ledger. See, I am objective about when I when I think about things. So I'll have to. I only had that game 9.5. I might have over. So here's the deal. So Hofstra. Here's how I think about it. Hofstra's like a really good team to talk about. So Hofstra has been down in the dumps for quite some time. But back in the day when Jay Wright was there, this was a team that played to my ratings being in the low 80s when they had that good guard that went to the NBA, and he recruited a lot of good players, and that's how he got the Villanova job. And then whatchamacallit went there, scumbag. I think Francione, maybe. Not Francione, he's football.
Francione, he likes the money.
Anyway, so I forget who it is. See, I'm old. I'm getting old. I know I remember every single thing about this. So when they had those really good string of coaches, or good recruiting coaches, I should say, because Jay Wright's no great coach, when they left, the program went down a little bit. Now, last year they hired Mihalik from Niagara, who always recruits good players up there. He plays an up-tempo style that kids like to play. He gives them a lot of freedom. He's obviously easy to like because his teams always do well. They always play hard, and they always play to a pretty high rating. No matter who he has there, his teams play to a pretty high rating. So because now he's at Hofstra, last year he had no players. This year he has all these transfers eligible. He has these two kids from Niagara that were both dynamite players. One was an all-league player. One was the leading scorer on a team. They're eligible. And he has this kid from SMU who in game one had like 20 points and 11 rebounds in like 15 minutes. Just had this, huge game. So I'm thinking that Hofstra's going to go back to, maybe close to where they were. I didn't think they'd be that good this year. But in coming years, I'd look for them to approach that low 80s rating. They were low 70s last year, by the way. 73 is what I ended them last year. So I guess 76 to start this year. I figured they'd be up a little bit, but not a lot because he still hasn't had his recruits time to get into the system. It takes three or 4 years to rebuild. So in the first game, they played Jacksonville, a school that also has a new coach that got rid of a coach that used to be pretty good that really came on hard times. And they're ahead 100 right away. I talk about flow of the game. Well, they just pounce on them and kill them. They're ahead 100 right off the bat, and they win by like 45. And I made the game like 11. That's all I made it. So this is a really good game for Hofstra. And I'm reading about these players. They all had decent games, but not overwhelming. Just that kid from SMU had a really big game, and I didn't know about him. So I raised their rating. And I raised it too much, obviously. Because I thought that Hofstra might actually be back to where they were. They're not. They're still not in NC State's league. NC State obviously is a middle-of-the-road ACC team. The guy gets good players there. So that was a mistake. I overreacted to a blowout win, which is rule number one. Don't do that. So I still fall for that, even though I know it's a bad thing to do because I had merit behind it. I had logic behind it. That his Niagara teams typically play like 79, 80. That Hofstra is going to recruit maybe a notch better than them because they had in years past. Teams typically recruit the same type players year in and year out unless they get some special coach. A la Southern Miss when they had Eustace and then Donnie Tyndall. Donnie Tyndall's the man. He's unbelievable. He presses all over the place just to slow the game down. And then when you have been pressed for like 10 seconds off the clock, now you have 25 seconds, and he throws a couple different zones at you, which he may switch into man immediately. So it's like impossible to get any offense against him. And you see that he did it at Morehead State and he did it at Southern Miss. He just had, they should have been in the tournament last year. I had them rated like to the moon. Them and Louisiana Tech and SMU got the biggest fuck jobs like ever. There were 15 teams that all three of those teams would have been a 3 to 5 point favorite over that were in the tournament. Now, how is that possible, right? But anyway, that's for the NCAA tournament show where we talk about how the committee just fucks teams over. Like unrelentingly fucks the mid-majors and Gonzaga, by the way.
Yeah, I saw your tweet to Joe Lunardi the other day.
Oh, yeah. Joe Lunardi, yeah. You know what got me with him? I always left him alone because he's just an idiot, But now he's on there, and I'm reading some game story, and he pops on and says, well, the experts, all the experts and I agree on the 4 top seeds. And I'm thinking, how the fuck is this guy an expert on college basketball? How much fucking money does he bet on a game? How the fuck does he know anything? And I thought about it because he picks teams that make the tournament. Well, they get all the wrong teams in the tournament. So big deal if he picks them right, you know? They don't ever have the right 64 in there, ever. Not even close. It's all about money. It's all about who do you want to help out and who don't. It's very political and very money oriented, and it's very, very sad because it's this wonderful game. It was such a wonderful game when I went to the Palestra, and you didn't know what was going on in the city next door, and they played in all these small gymnasiums, and there were certain games that you just could key on. I mean, you know, a home dog back then was a real home dog because kids were right on top of the floor. And the game meant something. It wasn't this big money thing that's blasted all over the television, you know, where now every game is life and death to the coach. So there's no such thing as like this big moment for a team because the team on the road is always has to be ready too because the coach loses his job if he doesn't win enough games. And the coach is making $350,000 a year, like at an average job. These guys make insane amounts of money. And they should because they're making a lot of money for the school if they do well. But why, you know, what I never got, and this is my last tirade, I'll let you ask another question, this is my last rant. Why do the kids are the ones that always get punished? Why when Calipari goes and cheats at a school and recruits illegally and does all this other nonsense, he gets caught and he's coaching like the next day? Why did he get suspended for 10 years? Why is it on the kids that they have these sanctions against the school? They had nothing to do with it. It was the fucking coach. Go after him. Like that whole thing at Penn State, where I don't know if anyone else read about what they did to Paterno there, it was a complete sham.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's for another day.
Yeah.
It's really sad. It's sad. The coach fucked up. Go after him.
Yeah, and they get to move to the next school and do it all over again.
Right, and Calipari did. He's been what? He's had 2 Final Fours disbanded. UMass and Memphis, I think. I'm sure he'll have another one in Kentucky. They pay the most. My buddy absolutely knows that they pay like up to $200,000 for a player to go there. You know, and it makes sense. I mean, it's worth it. Have some, you know, there's a lot of money in Kentucky, a lot of money down there. That thoroughbred country, those guys are giant money down there. And Kentucky played out here in a tournament a couple times, and like everyone was on a first name basis with the coach. It's when Muchimkala was there, the guy who ended up being an alcoholic. Really good coach, though. I think he came from somewhere in Texas and took the Kentucky job. Billy Gillespie.
Oh, yeah, Texas A&M.
Yeah, he was terrific, by the way. But, you know, he wasn't a Kentucky guy. But they're on a first-name basis with him. They're out here, and they filled up the whole Waynes Arena. It was unbelievable. They had, like, 5,000 people. Not that many. They had, like, 2,500 people from Kentucky here to go to a fucking basketball game. It was unbelievable. It just goes to show you how important it is and, you know, how much fervor there is around this, but also what they'll do to make that team good. They'll go to any lengths, and they should. It's very important to them, and it's very important to the school because it can generate so much fucking money. Eastern Michigan won by 12. That's great.
Well, that's what we say in the SEC, Alan. You're not cheating. You're not trying.
Yeah, everyone does, but it's known, and yet nothing's done about it, you know? Look at all the schools they go after for those low APR schools. There's one school that graduated like 90% of their players. Some insane amount of people graduated from the school, and they got hit with low APR sanctions. Like, it was ridiculous. And meanwhile, here's the guy from North Carolina, McCants, I think it was, who's saying that, you know, Roy Williams is well aware of the rampant cheating going on, and they sweep it under the rug. It's a story for like one day.
Yeah.
And then they mumble something about, well, he had ulterior motive. Well, what was that? Why don't you be specific about his ulterior motive? Why would he want to, you know, put his coach throw his coach under the rug? Why would he want to do that? Anyway, I'm getting off the beaten path here.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We knew this would happen, so we were it was quite all right.
You're prepared to edit.
Oh no, we leave it all in. We leave it all in.
Okay. It might bore some people, but anyway. That's me. I'm pretty passionate about this. I really do love the game, and I really don't like what's happened to it. And I think that's the most succinct way of saying it. And that's another reason I struggle really to get all the work done, because what I used to once love reading about all the creative ways coaches manage to win games, and how TCU struggled against Prairie Review's ever-changing defenses, and I'd crack a little smile, but it doesn't matter anymore. And it's just all about ESPN and who they want to promote and who makes the most money for them, and that's just it, and that it really is it too. And when Charles Barkley was on there last year, and like him or hate him, when Wichita State had that ridiculous draw with Louisville and Kentucky and all those other teams that could play in the bracket, like the weakest team would have been like a 3 seed in every other bracket. It was the most ridiculous bracket ever in the history of the NCAA tournament. And Barkley gets on there and says, well, they just want to take Wichita State out, right? That's the reason that they have Kentucky in the second round and Louisville in the third round. Have they gotten that far? What kind of bracket is that? We get Kentucky in the second round. Kentucky, like the number 1 team in the country preseason, 7 years running or something.
Well, did they say
like
something like the
8 seed or something?
The 3 of the year's previous Final Four teams were in that bracket? There was some crazy shit like that.
Yeah, it was the strongest bracket ever by far since I've been doing it, and I've been doing it 26 years. So I don't remember 26 years ago, and I don't even know if I finished out the whole NCAA tournament. I'm sure I did. But as I got more professional about it, as things evolved, and I got a little better at my craft and a little more professional about it. And by the way, that all started with stopping the drinking, stop doing coke, and start working out and starting eating healthy. That's how I became a winner at this. The ability was always there. It just never came out because I had all this clutter. So I got real healthy, and I got in killer shape, and things flowed a lot better as a result of that. I can't say I've been living healthy lately. That's why I'm on this juice. I'm trying this juice fast for 3 days. It's pretty cool. It's pretty disgusting, but it's pretty cool.
I could never do that.
In the book, the odds weren't you on the bike like during the games and stuff, like the entire time games are going on? You're like on a No,
never. Chad came and he brought the coffee and we sat there and talked, and he came on Saturday when I was sweating the games. We go out and eat dinner, we talk, and then he came on Sunday and I'd be reading game stories, and if something caught my eye, I'd throw it out at him. Like I was reading the Providence, Rhode Island recap, and Bill Reynolds, who's this incredible writer, he wrote Fall River Dreams about Chris Herron. He's written some other stuff too. He actually wrote about the decline of New England basketball. It was a beautiful book, really sad ultimately, but it was a history of basketball in New England, just a fantastic book. Not as good as Fall River Dreams. That's a great read. If you never read about Chris Herron, it's a great read. He wrote the Providence URI recap, which obviously is a big game in Rhode Island, the two primo schools. And he starts it off with, there's a great scene in the movie Night Moves where Gene Hackman, who had just caught his wife cheating, is home watching the Oakland Raiders play football, and his wife walks in and asks him who's winning. And he says, no one. One team's losing at a slower rate than the other. And that was his intro to the Providence. It was this really, obviously, this poorly played game, and that was his intro to it. But meanwhile, Night Moves is in my top 10 movies of all time. It's this little scene, Arthur Penn thing that he did it right after Bonnie and Clyde with Gene Hackman. And it was, I'll tell you, it was James Woods' first movie, actually. Just this fantastic movie that was all about mood and dialogue, and just a great movie. You haven't seen it. It's a must-see. Night Moves with Gene Hackman, Arthur Penn. Really, high-quality people. But anyway, who the fuck saw Night Moves? No one saw it. It lasted, back in my day, they had movies would open in Boston, and then a few weeks later, if they were real successful, eventually they'd make it to the suburbs. And then how long they played to the suburbs was determined as how well it was being received. So movies that played in Boston and played in the suburbs for 10 weeks were big hits. Night Moves never played in Boston. It played at the Needham Center for 1 week only. I happened to catch it during that week because Siskel and Ebert loved it. And they were on PBS at the time, and they were my heroes, and especially Roger Ebert. And Roger Ebert absolutely loved Night Moves, so I went and saw Night Moves. Didn't understand it, but the second viewing I did, and great movie. 1 second. That was partner. Anyway, yeah, Night Moves. So anyway, yeah, I mentioned that to him, and he went and he had interviewed Bill Reynolds for something else, and he got him to sign a copy of Follower of Dreams for me.
Nice.
So that was cool. So that's my yeah. So no, I didn't ride a bike when Chad was there. I was in killer shape though. I mean, and that was probably obvious that I had been training or working out. So he may have written it up, you know, maybe even overdid it, but I did work out hard in the gym.
Did you?
Not as hard as I eventually worked out, but.
Are you still hosting barbecue on the opening round weekend?
Last year, I did it last year, and I actually put it out on Twitter. Anyone wants to come over, come on over. I mean, I always like to think it's like a family, the Twitter thing, which is why when people, you know, start shitting on me, I get offended. I am overly sensitive with that. Because I really am trying. I mean, you know, I gave out like 60% winners last year on Twitter, and I had a bad year myself, so I really was careful in what I put on there. This year it hasn't been very good. I'm not even reading the comments. I don't want to, because if there's bad ones on there, I just don't want to. I don't want to deal with it. So it's not because I'm too busy to read them, because I don't want to read them.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, it's a troll. It's all for trolls, Alan.
I'm sorry?
It's a place just for trolls. Twitter's a tough place.
Yeah, you know, I've only had to block like 4 or 5 guys. I mean, how good is that? Like in a year and a half?
That's not bad at all.
That's pretty strong. No, that's pretty strong. That you only had 4 or 5 people shitting on you. That's pretty strong. So for the most part, you know, I have a respectful crew, which is really pretty cool. Because you think about it, I mean, you know, I'm there lambasting people like poor Joe Lenardi. You know, why does he deserve my shitting on him? But when he starts saying all the experts and I agree, you know, like he's one of the fucking experts, you know, I can't handle that.
Have you?
He's just a fucking ESPN show. That's all he is. He goes and predicts teams. He gets them right. So now the committee looks like, oh yeah, well Joe and Artie got them all right, and it's right, but it's not right. They didn't get any teams right last year. That was the worst year they ever did. They misseeded everything. They fucked Wichita State. They fucked Gonzaga. Gonzaga had a ridiculous draw. Oak State, then Arizona. I mean, ridiculous. Why do they deserve that?
Can you even get a degree in bracketology? I mean, what university can you get that from, Alan?
Yeah, that was unbelievable. Bracketology, yeah. Can you imagine? I thought the guy was kidding. I thought he, like, wrote that up himself. He said they actually have that course offered at St. Joe's.
They really do? They have a course at St. Joe's on bracketology?
Yeah. That was a real course. I wrote the guy back. I actually answered that. I said, "You're kidding me, right?" He said, "No, this is actually offered at school."
I thought that was just.
Now, you know, I assume that you could probably bring concept in there. You know, like there's probably some math concept you can bring in, probably some analytical stuff you can bring in. But how do you write a whole fucking course about who's going to make the NCAA tournament? Well, and be honest about it. If he's going to be honest about it, he said, "Well, ESPN." Asked Duke to play in this tournament for the next 2 years, and they said yes, so they got a 2 seed instead of the 7 they deserve, you know? Instead of doing that, which is what really happens, you know, I'm sure he's saying, you know, he's giving his theories on how he does it. I don't know how you can make a course out of it. I think you can make, like, a part of a course on it. Because, right, there is some logic in what he does. So there's logic in everything, really. So that's kind of a moot point.
So Colin,
the big thing now is Ken Palm, right? He does some ratings or something, Ken Palm. They seem to be pretty good, by the way. His ratings seem pretty good, by the way.
Yeah,
just from what people have told me.
Yeah, I think it's like $20 for the year, and I know a lot of coaches follow him. I know he's well respected in the college basketball community.
He does a lot of the turnover stuff, right? The points per possession, all that stuff.
Yeah.
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 Points per possession.
Down 31, great.
Yeah.
Arkansas State's only had 9. I'm glad I was tripping before. Great. South Alabama had 1 now. That's fucking great. Temple's at 8 with 9 seconds to go. I'm going to win that one. I didn't tweet that one either. What the hell did I tweet? Everything's going to lose. That's what I tweeted. Oakland loser. South Alabama and Georgia State, right? That's what I tweeted. All right, well, maybe I'll go 2-1.
This happens in college football with me. Do you ever notice that the ones you don't tweet seem to always win, and the ones you do tweet seem to be?
No, last year, like I said, I tweeted like 60% winners, and I had a bad year. So, no, I'm like super careful. This year, I had a really good day opening day, and I went 0-2 on Twitter, but I won about every other game, so that was a little annoying. But one of them was ooey pooey, so I couldn't get yelled at too much for that one. I really can't get yelled at for anything. Here's a guy who's won his whole life, who's offering, his assistance, and I always give it out at lines that are available. I'm not like Fezzik who, say take 9 on this game when it's like 6. And at least I do all my own work. I'm not having meetings with other people and trying to figure out who's going to win, like Fezzik, which is why he's a tout now, by the way.
So yeah, why?
I'll never be a tout, boys. I'll never be a tout.
Yeah.
Ever.
Well, and while we're on that subject, I know that Cullen.
Yeah. Why do I abhor them so much?
Well, no, how we met Alan. How we met Alan is. I was a big fan of you after reading. I know about your 7-card stud days, and I read the odds, and I loved it all. And of course, I watched you on Poker After Dark, and how many hands of Nolan Hold'em?
I got shit on for that too, but I had played about 100 hands of Nolan Hold'em prior to that. I had never played the game before, and I was completely card dead too. By the way, I would not play any hands the way I played it. Yeah, I played bad. I really actually did play bad. I mean, I would play everything different now, but except the 2 kings.
You didn't get any.
I had kings once, which I played. I played kings perfectly, by the way.
Yeah, but you never ever, you had a 3-6, queen 3, king 3. You never had shit to ever do. And plus you had the magician, or what do you like to call him, Tony? Sitting there, the commentator. Yeah, sitting there on your left, just, he was getting all cards all
He wasn't
day.
playing that. He was playing tight. As phone Diari, he was playing tight.
Yeah, so
he's a one-trick player. I don't like him. He just, anyone that dabbles cliche unrelentingly, I can't handle it. Everything out of his mouth is just stupid and simple and amateurish, and makes, I'm glad he's doing the commentary for ESPN, because when Olivier there was doing the commentary, he actually said what you should be thinking about, where Esfandiari doesn't know how to think, so he doesn't know how to tell people, how to think about a poker hand, which is good, because he wants to educate everybody.
Well, I found it funny when he was saying, Van Hoof should have played this way, and Jacobson should have played this. Yeah, well, these guys are at the final table, and your ass is doing commentary. If you were good enough, you'd be at the table with them.
A lot of that's luck too. I mean, I don't think I made a mistake. Though I played in the main event 2 years ago. I drew the brutal table day 1 naturally, and played amazing. I don't think I gave away a chip. I pulled off a huge bluff on Alessandro, where it was actually kind of a cool hand. Not a poker show, I won't go for it. But anyway, day 2, I draw this really easy table. I drew a very easy table day 2, so now's a chance to get into the tournament, and I went completely card dead. It was like just on Poker After Dark. I never had a hand. I never flopped a hand. I won 3 pots in 9 hours, and I was bluffing all 3 of them. You're not going to win a tournament like that. So you got to be lucky.
Yeah, he had some strong personalities there too, with Jamie Gold, and the way he will just telegraph. You had some strong personalities at that table with the mouth there and everything.
I'd like to play that table the rest of my life. It was a pretty easy table, actually, considering. Phone Diari, Mike Sexton, he's a really nice guy. He plays pretty good, but he plays pretty. Mike actually plays pretty good. He puts a lot of thought into what he's doing. He's tight, right? He's beatable now, and the mouth is the man. I mean, there isn't a nicer guy on this planet. Absolute sweetheart, but poker isn't his thing. He's just not a good poker player.
Right.
I think he's maybe a good poker tournament player, and I root hard for him. He's really a sweetheart. Like, he'd give you anything he's got. But, it wasn't a hard table. There was no talent really at the table. Whatchamacallit, Paul Wassica, who I later played with 2 years ago, and he had a Ron Paul hat on. And he didn't like me in that game. But when I said, Ron Paul, huh? I said, how did he not get 100% of the vote? And he had a big smile on his face. He said, you know me, don't you? I said, I do. And he said, yeah, I'm Paul. I said, Paul who? I'm not good with faces. Anyway, so we became like... We had a very friendly chat that entire night about libertarian thinking and why the American population is so stupid, etc.
I had followed you for a while, and I saw you put out some college football picks, and I tweeted at you. I said, "Hey, Alan, you can take." I don't know who it was. I might have told you to take Memphis, or there were some other plays that we had that we were doing really good on. We were on a heater. And I woke up 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning, and you put out a tweet. Who are the CCH guys? They better not be some of these motherfucking touts. And I almost fell on the floor. I was laughing all day because we're just sorry. we are anti. I mean, we're just anti-tout. We're not Don Best, and we're not the face of handicapping. We're not any of that. We're just guys doing it for free because we're passionate, because we love it. So when I read that,
awesome. Yeah, well, I'll say that the stuff that the games you gave are like really high level. The games that were put on there were really like the nuts. Like the stuff was really good. Like they were well thought out. Really.
Yeah.
You got followed too. I mean, when you put it out there, the lines moved a little bit. So.
Yeah, the funny thing is we cashed on Mass. We cashed on UMass for 5 straight weeks in college football. I don't know who else does that.
Yeah, I bet against Mass Sunday in college basketball, and that didn't work out. Can't believe how BC fell apart. They were bait at the half, and then UMass, started pressing them, and that's what UMass does anyway, and they weren't ready for it. It was so weird. Jim Chris is the coach too. He's good. Anyway, that's just part of the battle. I should bet first halves. First halves I do better on them than regular games because a lot of what I do is emotion, which doesn't work anymore, by the way. So that's an ongoing battle with myself, too. I know emotion doesn't enter the fray anymore because every game is so important to every team because the coach's job is always on the line that, you don't really get flat spots anymore. And, 300,000 later, I realize that it doesn't work anymore. But at least I figured it out and stopped playing for teams to be flat because they don't. They're not. Even like something simple like Cal State Fullerton, who was playing extremely shorthanded against San Diego State. Their starting five, the first 7 minutes of each half was at 31-13 at San Diego State. Which, by the way, when you talk about flow of the game, well, there's something that's really relevant. So here's Cal State Fullerton winning the first 7 minutes of both halves. Now that really. That's relevant, right? It's San Diego State in San Diego State, a very, very good team, like a top 15 team every year. And they're beating them. They ended up getting blown out, but they have 6 guys who aren't academically eligible, so they have nowhere to go on their bench. And their starters get worn out a little bit, and, they crack. So they're on 1 day's rest, and now they're going to Arizona, who kind of struggled against Mount St. Mary's, didn't play that great game, so they're going to be ready to kill someone. And, in the old days, I would be thinking that Arizona's going to wear them out and run up the score. And now I know that, these teams just play so hard every game for so long that even though it was a good game for Fulton to kind of like mail it in at some point, they never did, and they didn't. It's a bad example because they could crack just because they don't have enough manpower. But let's say a team pulls off a big upset, and now they're on the road against some team that they figure to beat. It's a perfect spot for them to have a letdown. In the old days, you can go to the bank. Let's say like NC State beats Duke at home, and now they're at Wake Forest the next game. No travel, a team that they can beat, but they just beat Duke, and now Wake Forest hasn't won a game in 2 months, and they're a dog at home, and you just know they're pointing for this. It's a local rival. They really want to win this game, and NC State's going to be flat. But that don't happen no more. Because that loss to Wake Forest might keep them out of the tournament, or it might cost the coach a job. and they play basketball 365 days a year now. You know, back when I was growing up, athletes played football in the winter, or in the fall, hockey in the winter, and baseball in the spring, or, you know, did something else in the winter. But they played three different sports for the 3 different seasons. That don't happen no more. You play basketball, you play basketball. You very rarely see a 2-letter guy anymore, a 2-sport letter guy anymore. It just doesn't happen. And parents are maniacal about, you know, getting kids coaches, and they have these AAU teams that's playing nonstop, and, you know, it's just, there's no let up, and the gym has become more relevant, so these guys are in better shape than they were years ago. So teams that used to have letdowns and fall-offs don't anymore for all the aforementioned reasons. And that was a big part of my game, was psychology. I talked to Chad about how I got inside each team, where I really felt the ebb and flow of each team for the whole season. And, you know, the more teams I got inside, so to speak, the better I would do, because I almost knew when they were going to have their big game. I almost knew when they were going to have their bad game, because I knew the team like they were my brother. And that doesn't happen anymore.
See, that's what I had some questions for you about Arizona, because you had Arizona ranked number 1, and I went through their schedule just with a comb, and I said, you know what, on December 2nd, they play Gardner-Webb, which is right after the Maui Invitational, and it's right before they play Gonzaga. That might be a great spot. Or Utah Valley after the Gonzaga game, but it's before the Michigan game. That might be a great spot. So, I mean, you don't look at that anymore, because, you know,
No, it don't work. Sandwich games don't work. And as a matter of fact, in football, when I first charted it in football, it actually worked. The team that was in the sandwich actually covered more than they didn't. You know, I didn't have a lot of samples because there aren't a lot of sandwich games in football, but in basketball, it doesn't work. You'd think it's like automatic, you know, the team's going to, but it just doesn't happen. And you know, 20 years ago, yes, it happened all the time. And 15 years ago, even, maybe a little bit less. But now, where every game's on TV, every game's monitored closely, and the coach has to win. You know, back in the day, it was just a job. They didn't get paid $350,000 and $500,000 and millions of dollars like some of these guys make. Calipari makes millions of dollars, like one of the highest paid guys in the world. Can you imagine that fucking scumbag making all that money? He's not even a very good. He's not a very good coach either. He's a great recruiter. He's not a good coach. You watch them play, it's disgusting to watch. All those shots they won games with, they were all bad shots. They happened to go in. Mm-hmm. You know, the last shots they won in those NCAA tournament games. Go look at them. See if they see the offense they ran, or lack thereof. You know, that guy happened to make some tough shots. Back in the day, kids went to college to learn, or because it was the right thing to do, or because that was a way to get a better job. Whatever reason they went to college for, college mattered. Basketball didn't. Now it's the other way around. Kids go to school, and the school is determined by their basketball pedigree. You know, and it's really sad, and really something has to be done about it. I don't think college should be a forum for kids to, you know, have their basketball development. They're supposed to be places of higher learning. You know, well, that all went out the window when Tommy Amaker went to Harvard and started recruiting, you know, like primo athletes to Harvard. I'm just saying, you know, I'm not saying that their IQs aren't 160, but probably not. So I was walking to class with Corliss Williamson. What?
I was walking to class with Corliss Williamson in '95. I don't think he was. I don't think he was there to work on his broadcasting degree.
He's coaching somewhere now, isn't he?
He's in Sacramento. He's on the bench in Sacramento. Pretty sure.
Okay. I think he was. He was somewhere. He was at Central Arkansas, I think. They might have shit-canned him. I don't know. Anyway. There's some really good coaches around the country that get no acclaim. The guy at Gardner-Webb he beat me the other day, and he did it because they played smart, you know. And they also hit every time the game was about to get away from them, they hit a three. But you know, there's another thing. It's all so tenuous. You know, you make these bets and you think you made a bad bet, but LSU got ahead 16. Gardner-Webb hit a three. They got ahead 14. The Gardner-Webb hit a three. They got ahead 16 again. They hit a three. They got ahead 14 again. They hit a three. And then they hit another three and another three. But like there were key moments in the game where the game could have got to 20, and now, you're going to win, where they hit a three-pointer every time. Even UNLV, I laid 7 with UNLV last night. So they finally get ahead 7, and they hit 12 out of 27 foul shots, including Dia had 6, and they missed the foul shot, and now the other team comes down and hits a 3. And there's like a minute and 4 to go. So now the game's on 3 with a minute and 4 to go, and you don't have to foul. So now the game plays out pretty true, and you're never going to cover 7 now, and they didn't. In fact, Stephen Austin was, Sam Houston was shooting to win the game at the end. But had they made the 1-on-1 and got ahead 8, and they miss a 3, and now you're probably going to win. I mean, it doesn't mean you made a horrible bet. It just means the end game didn't play out in your favor. Yeah, you were a dog to win, but obviously there were scenarios where you don't shoot 12 out of 27 foul shots, where your 80% foul shooter doesn't hit 2 out of 5, Doolin, by the way, and you win. And, I don't know how to put that into a number, but I usually, I obviously think about that when I'm handicapping a game. That, this game didn't have to play out like this. If they made more foul shots, perhaps the game would have been, on 10 late in the game, and then I don't look like such an idiot. It's a guessing game for me, and, maybe computer programmers can actually define exactly what all that's worth, where typically the team would hit, 15.5 out of 27 foul shots. So, they played 3.5 points worse than expected because of that, and that gets plugged into a program somehow. I don't know how it works, but I imagine something along those lines. They average 1.3 points per possession, and they made 1.1 points per possession, but the other team defends to this, so they were expected to get 1.26 points per possession, and they only got 1.1, so they had a bad night shooting, so they actually played to this number. I'm sure the computer can figure out all that data and generate a pretty accurate number. But I don't know, I could never do it like that because I wouldn't believe it. Because if you're defending really well, which I guess that's in there, based on how much they defend, I guess the computer could do it all. You could actually figure out how good you are at everything.
Are you the one that moved the Sacramento State line? It's moved 6 points.
No, that was Raz. And then someone else. It was Raz. They bet Sacramento State in the morning. His handicapper did. I don't know if he gave it out, but I'm actually on the other side.
So it'd be a good time for me to have Riverside +1.
I'm trying to get +2 -20. That's what we're waiting for, which hopefully will show.
Colin, you had another question for him about Drexel, I think, right?
About what was it?
Yeah,
Drexel.
Yeah,
Alan, I read a good write-up, CAA.
Oh yeah, I did that for the guy from the Dragon Speak website. Yeah,
that was really good stuff, and I was wondering.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I didn't. I didn't really edit it. I could have edited that a little better. Like the Northeastern guy said, he gets the most out of his players twice, so that had to be edited. But thank you. I actually tried to make some sense, and he said it made sense. He said your points were well taken, and thank you very much. And could you preview every team for me now? So I told him I'd give him a little blurb on Drexel's opponents, and I didn't do it tonight because I assumed he's from Philly. He'd know something about St. Joe's, maybe even more than me. So, but I did write about Colorado and how I thought it was stupid for them to schedule it, and then he said they were getting paid to play in that game, so that's why they went there. And so he left out that part.
Well, I was more interested in Drexel. Like you had them ranked above James Madison and Hofstra, I think, and I was wondering if that's just
that's because who has had the better program for all those years? Drexel's been near the top with Bruiser all those years. So the last 2 years, I actually wrote that he had 50 starters lost to injury last year. So he could throw out last year completely. Right. He never had a chance to develop chemistry. It was just a horror show. And but that same team last year dominated Arizona for a half. And then after blowing that game to Arizona, blowing in double leads to Arizona, the very next night they went in like 4 or 5 overtimes to beat Alabama. They lost their best player to injury and lost a brutal game that they should have won. They were in an impossible situation, and they beat a good team the next night. So this was a real deal team. This was a tournament team, and it just didn't work out. And Arkansas State's not losing. That's great. I'll fucking hang myself.
Don't do that.
So, and South Alabama's down 3, now down 5 with 2 minutes to go. So they won't be covering 10.5, I'm sure. since they've been winning the whole game. So there'd be another good, like, for instance, when this game falls like 11 or 12 and I hang myself, it'd be a good bet that just didn't win. Like the Hofstra was a good bet, a bad bet that won. You know, hopefully it won't get evened up here because I've had the ooey pooies too often and not the Hofstras often enough. And if that ever starts evening it out, I think I'll have a monster year because I really feel like I'm in a good place with this. It's just a matter of remembering that I used to beat this all the time, and that no matter how many days in a row I lost when I was a kid doing this, and as a kid I mean someone in my 30s, when I woke up every morning, I knew I was going to win. You know, I knew I was the man and I was going to win. And I got to remember that because I don't think I'm that guy anymore, you know, and there's no reason for me to think that given my history's been good, you know. So that's my own pep talk.
So when you analyze something like say like the process and the result, do you give yourself a moment to breathe before you objectively analyze it, or are you able to do it right away?
I kind of just do it as I'm reading.
Okay.
And then when I go and adjust my power rating, I try to remember, you know, not to change the rating too dramatically based on what I read, like I did with Hofstra, by the way. But it was the first game, you know, with a bunch of new players, so I had every right to be wrong about the team. And the team did have a pedigree that would allow them to play to a higher rating. Or you can look at it very simply and say, well, it's NC State at Hofstra. It's Hofstra at NC State. You know, it's got to be double digits. It just has to be because it's Hofstra at NC State. Really, if you do it simply like that, you're going to find a lot of good bets. Like Dartmouth went to St. Bonaventure the other day. They bet the game down to like 5. Well, this is the fucking bottom team in the Ivy League going to a borderline NCAA team every year, and they're getting 5 on the road. Now, you know, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that you just bet the favorite. You just fuck all the rest of the information because very simplistically it's Dartmouth at St. Bonaventure. And the line can't be 5. And, you know, if you're struggling to find a winner, there's a good way to do it. If you have enough knowledge of this relative strength of each team over the years, providing they haven't switched coaches or anything, you're going to find winners just doing it that way.
Okay.
Believe me, you will. Because everything else is bullshit. You know, how good is the team? Are you a scratch golfer or aren't you? Are you a plus 10 handicap? That's all that matters. That's not changing unless you're a kid who's getting better and better and better with practice, or a guy who's working on his game, you know, who's just starting. Once you have a handicap that's been developed over the years, that's where you're going to go to. You know, unless you start really working hard on your game, trying to get better, or you take lessons, or you figure something out. But for the most part, you are what you are. And these college basketball teams are what they are. So Duke's Duke, and North Carolina's North Carolina, and Princeton's Princeton. Christ, Princeton's played to the same number for like 15 straight years. I haven't changed their rating in 15 years. They go and no matter who's on the floor, that's who they are, that's who they play. They get, you know, the better of the smart kids until America came along, and, you know, we still have to question how smart they are, and now Southern Miss is on 6 with 2 minutes to go.
Allen, Georgia State tied with Iowa State.
Are they? Shows down 4 on my screen here. But.
So,
and that's it.
Colin, do we have anything else?
No, other than an open invitation to Allen to join us on any of our college football pods anytime, and would love to have him. I
don't know what a pod is. You mean podcast?
Okay. You're doing.
Yeah,
one.
I'm doing we're doing it right now. Yeah.
I really am naive with the old terminology. I mean, they had the calculators were just coming out when I was in high school. Calculators, and I didn't use them because I could do it faster in my head than on the calculator. You know, I might punch the wrong number into something, so you know I could always multiply or add faster than I could with a calculator. So I never bothered using them. So that's like my, you know, I know how to turn a computer off and on sometimes.
Well,
and
just make sure with Twitter. Just make sure with Twitter if you're talking.
And now they're down 8 with a minute 44 to go. So we're going to lose this fucking game. This is just like unbelievable. No,
just remember, if you're talking to a girl on Twitter, do it in your DMs and not in your public stuff.
Yeah, just tweet me privately, you know, and and I'll get it that way for sure, because I'm not going to read these comments. 'Cause I'm not giving any winners out in this fucking thing, and I just don't want to hear it. I really don't. I'm blowing my money. You know, it's. I don't eat when I don't win, and I don't need to hear it from some fucking asshole who,
Yeah,
if they followed me to a T, even the tennis, I killed the tennis on what I gave out on there. There were many 3, 4 to 1 underdogs that won. Many, many, many. And had you bet the same amount on all the tennis bets, you would have killed it. Something I don't even know much about, you would have killed it. So
And those
stuff's been really good on there, and I just don't want to hear it.
So to give
Because I am trying.
So Alan, to give people perspective, besides you, how many people make a living off of college basketball betting?
I have no idea. Probably a lot more than I think. But who does the actual work that influences the market? It looks like there's that Raz handicapper who bets in the morning, and then there seems to be another crew that bets in the morning that just started, and then there's a crew that bets in the afternoon. So it looks like there's 3 crews that have some effect on the market.
Okay.
So they probably went. If you're betting big enough where you affect the market, it means you've been a winner over the years. Because when you win, you get to bet more, right? That's it's self-perpetuating. So you should always. I was taught to always respect money, but I never have, because I always thought I knew more than everybody else. So.
Although you have in college basketball, so.
And South Alabama's foul. Oh, they hit a 3, South Alabama. Thank God. Now they don't have to foul. They're down 4 with minute 6 to go. They fouled. What a fucking joke. Why do you foul? You're down 4 with a minute 6 to go. Defend a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't have to foul.
Bad coaching.
Try defending a little bit. Right? You still might get a steal. I hate when they do that, when they just foul. You're down 4. Just try to make the steal. Defend for 10, 15 seconds. There's plenty of time to get back in the game. Not because I have a bet on it either, although that bet is the main reason, but, you know, it's just smart. You still might get a steal in the backcourt. You're putting a lot of pressure on them. Foul in the flow of trying to steal the ball. Don't foul just to foul. You know, unless it's desperation time, there's no reason to do that. Down 4 with a minute 6 to go is not desperation time.
Nope. All right, well, I'll let you go, Alan, so you could start focusing more on those games, but I really appreciate you joining the podcast here, and I'll...
Anytime. Just private message me, because I'll definitely get it that way.
And I will make sure that... we're recording this on Monday night, but I'll probably release it tomorrow night, a little after the late games. But, Alan, I appreciate you joining. You can find him...
Anytime. You got my email, and just, you know, you can get me that way, too. You got my phone number, you can get me that way, too.
Yep, I appreciate it. And you can catch him at BostonRed88. Alan, it's a pleasure. Colin, thanks for joining. Everyone...
Nice talking to you, Colin. Is it at CCH? Is that it?
At CCH Picks, buddy.
At CCH Picks, okay.
All right.
I'll check
Alan,
that out.
Thank
you very much. Good night.
And have a good night.
Go Southern Miss. Bye.
Hell yeah.
No, South Alabama, actually. Bye.
Bye, Alan.